Welcome to episode 2 of the Knitted Bean podcast. I am Echo and I am your host. It is Monday, January 25th, and I am coming to you from Montana with my 2 dogs. I have Izzy in front of me, whom you can't see, and Lugs running around on the floor, whom you also can't see, but I'm sure that they will be up here at some point. Just a heads up, I do swear. I'm not going to swear every opportunity I have because that's not how I work, but I'm not going to police myself either because that's definitely not how I work. I am going to be talking about fan fiction. I won't talk about it explicitly in terms, but I will recommend fanfics which probably are going to be explicit. So if you're not okay with that, go ahead and page right out of here. Find a different knitting podcast. There are hundreds. They're great. I love them. I watch many of them. And there's some for all of us. This one is just designed for those of us who happen to like fandom and writing, fanfic, and also like knitting, because I know that you're out there. I've heard you coyly refer to it. So let's get the show on the road. It is really cold here. It's snowing outside. It had been kind of warm, but it's not lasting. I don't know how cold it is out there, but it's got to be below 32 because it's snowing. So I have my first FO, which was my winter hat that I've been aiming to make for a couple of months now. So I actually had bought the yarn and I didn't know what I wanted to make with it. And then I decided, oh, this yarn, it goes so good with this pom-pom that I have that Aiden sent me. And I want to make a hat and I'm going to put the pom-pom on. It is a snappy pom-pom. The very best kind. Because it's easy to wash. You just take pom-pom off and wash it. Pardon the hat hair. I've literally been wearing it all day because it's cold. And I'm not above wearing a hat in the house if it's cold. So I decided that I would make this. Well, the problem is that the yarn that I had bought was DK. But I wanted to make the Windchief by Stephen West. This is actually the first Stephen West pattern I've ever made. Not for any particular reason, because I really do love shawls. Just for pure laziness, I think. And I've never done brioche, and a lot of his stuff has brioche in it. I know he has some non-brioche options on them as well, but it just hasn't happened. It's a goal. One of these days I'm going to do one. So anyway, I saw the hat. I really wanted to do the hat, and I was like, oh, it's fine. I'll do the math, right? The math. No problem. So I tried to do the math, and I don't even remember because it was a couple months ago how many stitches I cast on, and I deleted that part of my Ravelry page because I was so pissed off. I cast on a bunch of stitches, I got going, and I was like, this doesn't seem big enough. Okay, so I tore it out. I was only maybe an inch in. It was fine, no big deal. I don't mind frogging. Frogged it and started over, and I cast on, I think the next time I cast it on like 120 some stitches, and I was like, I'll figure out the math, and I don't know how I was trying to do the math with how big the twisted rib section was going to be, but I thought I had it. So I knitted the whole 5 inches up, right? I get up here, I start doing the decreases, and it's clear. I somehow haven't figured out the math for my decreases right, because I have 3 evenly spaced decreases and one that's like super close to the others, and it looks super goofy. So I'm like almost done with this hat. I mean, I'm down to like 20 some stitches, and it's like, and I'm like, well, it fit, but it looked awful. Okay, screw that. I'm gonna frog the whole thing, and I'm gonna set this away for a little bit while I think about it. I frogged the whole thing again, and by then I was annoyed, really annoyed, truly annoyed. So I frogged the whole thing. I erased the project page on Ravelry, I recaked the yarn because by now I've used like half the yarn cake and it's a hot mess of frog yarn. And I set it in my stash to sit and unkink for a while and to think. And, you know, I talked a little bit with Aiden about it, and a little bit with some of my other knitting friends, Darcy and stuff, about it. And I was like, you know, I will add some mohair to it, because I have wanted to knit a fingering and mohair sweater for a long time, but I feel like a sweater is a really big project and haven't made the leap. I talked about that last podcast, how I'm somehow scared of sweaters, even though I knit dog sweaters. And I mean, I knit perfectly fine. I knit hats, I knit socks, I knit gloves and cowls, and I'm not a incompetent knitter. I mean, I constantly think of myself as a beginner knitter, but I've been told that I am, in fact, more of an intermediate knitter. You'd think I could tackle a sweater, but it scares me. So I know. It's on my list. I'm going to do it this summer. But I thought, you know, this would be a great chance to play with mohair. In my stash, I have some deep stash. I'm pretty sure it's Ella Ray Silky Kid, because I used to really buy a lot of Ella Ray, and it's wound like Ella Ray. But it didn't have a tag on it anymore even. I mean, it's been in there for like 5 years. Just chilling. And it's gone through a move. It's lost its tag a while ago. And it was white, and I was like, that'll go with anything. You know, I'll just put that with my DK, and that'll equal worsted. And worsted is what I needed for the pattern. Then I can just follow the pattern. I can quit trying to screw around with the math and have it be pissed off at it. No problem. I can have my winter hat. Yes. Okay. So a couple months go by. I pulled it out this weekend, and I think I cast it on Friday, and I went full waffled. I was like, should I make a medium, which is what it would recommend for my head size, or should I make a small, because I like the way that it fits in the pictures where Steven's modeling it. And if you look at the notes, it'll tell you, you know, when you see a pattern model, that'll say like, oh, wear it with this much ease or blah, blah, blah. A lot of times they'll say in the notes, like, this model pictured has such and such sizes, and they're wearing X and Y size. Well, you know, and it says, so this is a large, and they're wearing, or no, I think it said this is a medium, and their head circumference is like 22.5 inches or something. And the point was that it basically had a 1/2 inch bigger around than what was recommended by how much it said it stretched. So you knit the pattern with negative ease anyway, and then he was wearing it with even more negative ease. And I was like, I really like it like that. And so I was like, maybe I should knit the small, because the small would give me more negative ease like that. And then I was like, I don't know, because for me it would have been like 1 inch extra. So I decided to go ahead and do the medium, which was right within where I fit. I think it was a medium went up to like 22, and my head size was like 21. And so I knit the medium, or so I thought. After doing all this thinking and trying to decide, do I want the medium? Do I want the small? Here's what happened. I unthinkingly cast on for a small, and then followed all the directions for a medium. And what that meant was that my pretty little pattern section was a lot smaller than it was supposed to be. It also meant that by the time I got to my increases would have been screwed up. And I didn't realize this until I got up to my increases at 5 and some inches. So for the 3rd time, I had to frog the fucker. And I was pissed. I was so pissed. I'm like, are you kidding me? All I had to do was follow the goddamn pattern. And apparently I couldn't do that. Not only that, I've now knit it with mohair. If you have ever frogged mohair held together with something, it is not a pleasant experience. I give myself points for only breaking the mohair once. So I frogged it again. I was very angry. I immediately turned around and cast it back on. And I'm using the needles that the pattern recommends, except for that I didn't do my brim in a smaller size because I don't have a size 6 circular in a hat size, and I don't have the money to run out and buy one, so screw it. My brim's not tighter than the rest of my hat. It looks fine. And I cast it back on. I use a German twist cast on for my hats, and I cast it on with the medium number of stitches. I stitched 3 past my cast on. I threw that sucker in my yarn bowl, which is made by my husband and is glorious, I might add. Keep trying to talk him into letting me sell them. And I went to bed. It was only like 10 o'clock at night, but I'm like, screw that. I'm going to bed. I'm mad at my hat. It's Saturday night. I could have been done. Nope. So I got up the next morning and I worked diligently on my little hat from my cast on upward, and I made very sure that I actually had the medium number of stitches with my stitch markers in the medium place so that I was not being an idiot. And I swear I was not drunk. I don't drink, or very, very rarely. I was just like, so I worked through it. I took a couple breaks for lunch and dinner. We went, got some groceries, things like that. But I managed to finish the hat in probably 8 hours because it was done by night. And, you know, we took breaks and stuff. So I did all my day creases. I finished it up. It gets down to 8 stitches. I closed my 8 stitches with a Kitchener because I kind of don't like it when you do the little whole 8 thing and you pull it and it looks like a butthole. And because I knew I wanted to put the palm on top and I wanted to have kind of a flat platform to put that on. And then I blocked it, and I blocked it over a bowl, and I let it dry overnight. I got up this morning, sewed on my snap, put on my palm. The only thing is, it is a little loose. I wish one of two things, that I'd either gone ahead and knit the small to get the fit that I want. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not that it doesn't fit, because it fits great. To get the fit that I wanted, I think I should have knit the small. Or I could have blocked it flat instead of over a bowl, and then it probably wouldn't have stretched. But even before I blocked it, it was not like, and I kind of wanted it, but that's okay. It works great. It looks great. I'm really happy with it. Anything else? That's it. That's all I got on this. It's a 100 wash superwash merino for the Tosh kit, or Tosh high twist, and Ella Ray silky kid. I don't know what that was, because like I said, it's real. I would totally do it again. I might make, I'll talk a little bit later, I'm gonna make my husband a fall and spring hat, because the hat that he has that I made him, the Rafa hat, is very warm and for winter only. I might make him one of these. We'll see. He likes a brim though, like a fold over brim. So the other FO that I have, I guess I could have put them on sock blockers, but I didn't think about it because they were sitting there so nice and folded, are my Homebody Socks by Curious Handmade, who is Helen Stewart. I gotta get around my dog here because she has decided to park. So they've got a nice little front twist. That is not the twist the order goes in on the pattern, but that's how I wanted it. Put some fun on the toes. These have been blocked and sitting for a minute, so. And then, you know, flat sole. and some ribbing. So I really like these. You want a closer look at the hat? It is this twisted rib. I really like it. Okay, closer peek done. I can't take the hat off. I just twisted my hair and it's gonna look awful. Eep. Back in my chair. So I really like these. These are 72 stitches on a 0. I almost always knit socks on a 0. My hair feels funny under the hat now. I gotta fix it. Hang on. Told ya. Told ya. I'm not afraid to show my bad hair on the internet. That's what happens when you put more hair over your real hair. Okay. Back to my socks. Well, they're not my socks. They're gift socks. The colorway is Fantastic by Shipwreck Sheep, whom I really like. I was pointed there by a friend of mine. They have all kinds of charity colorways for different genders, orientations, leanings, persons of color, just any kind of representation you could want. I did check right before the podcast. They're pretty darn sold out of those. I think they only have like 4 colorways left. There's like a Sappho, and Baby, and Won't Be Erased. And there was still some Fantastic, but it wasn't on sock. There's, you know, different bases. Like, she has some on some bases and some on other bases. They're running low. But last time they ran low, she redyed them and refilled them. So I will keep an eye on them if you're interested. This one is on Jazz Sock, which is got lyrics in it, so it's sparkly. It's 75% merino, 20% nylon, 5% lyrics. I get my notes. What else? 100 grams, 435 yards, and it's 4-ply. So a portion of the profits from this yarn does get donated to the Trevor Project, which is a good charity that is designed to help prevent suicide amongst LGBTQ plus youth. So that is a cause close to my heart and to the gift recipient's heart. And I think it's really cool that she does that. I did a Fish Lips Kiss Heel, and the pattern, I think it was a 5 British pounds, which again, I think works out to about $7.5 US. And it is not written for fingering sock. It's written for DK. Hang on, I got a shivering dog. She's a granny. She gets cold. That's why I knit her sweaters. Although she's not wearing one right now. Do you need a blanket, Granny? Alright. We'll get just a little bit taller, they can see you. She's like, I just want to lick. I don't care about the camera. I'm not a fame whore like my sister. So, now that these are done and have been shown off, they can get all packaged up and sent off overseas to their recipient. I'm excited. They smell good. So that's my 2 FOs. That's all I got for FOs. I do have 2 whips though. Okay, no licking. They don't need to hear you licking your paws 24/7 on the camera. She will. She'll lick so loud she'll keep you awake. I'm digging for my bag. And I can't reach now because I put a dog in my lap. What do we get first? Oh, we get socks! You get to see Aiden's bag. This is like my one actual knitting bag. And it is covered in a bazillion pins. Everything from a bi sheep to a frog to how women should vote. Like it. So in here we have, it's a slightly more than half finished object. And it has not been blocked, and you can tell. These are the Broken Seed Stitch socks by, and I really apologize if I mispronounce your name because I have no idea how to say this. Hannah Lavaniemi. This is a free pattern on Ravelry. This is the second time I've knitted. I do really like it. I have no idea what kind of toe and heel she uses in her pattern because I don't use that. I use my regular old wedge toe. And then I did use a Fish Lips Kiss heel this time. I've kind of been in a kick of those instead of my typical German short row. I like them both though. So I put a twisted rib cuff on this just because I thought it would be fun. I bound it off. It was too tight. I do a super stretchy bind off, and so I just followed the twisted rib pattern, and for some reason working my needles that way did not work as much yarn into it as working them in a 1x1 regular rib did. So I unpicked it and I worked it like a regular 1x1 rib without the twist. And although it doesn't look quite as nice, it added like an extra 4 inches of yarn into the bind off, and it's stretchy. So I don't know, if you're gonna do the super stretchy bind off, don't do it in a twisted rib pattern. It will not be super stretchy. It was not even as stretchy as Jenny's stretchy bind off. It was like a regular bind off. So I think I knit this up in like 2 or 3 days. This pattern does take me a little bit longer because it's kind of time consuming. It's really easy to memorize, but it's kind of time consuming. So the yarns in here, I have literally nothing but a toe, like 1 row on my other one. But the yarns in here that I'm working with for this pattern are, I always say this wrong, but it's Ridiculous yarns. This is Eggnog, which is a beige with these, you know, it says they're red, but they're really purple, which is cool because purple's what I ordered and what I wanted. And it is on their Addy Sock Space, which is a fingering weight 4-ply, 463 yards to 100 grams. It's your regular 75-25. There's their tag. Makes me feel short when I can't get it close enough to the counter. It's just an Etsy shop, but I do really like them for their speckled yarns. And then Dear Mina yarns, whom I really love. Love the squishiest MCN ever. This is Purple Kathy, and it's showing up really dark. There you can kind of, there we go. Kind of see it over here. It is still pretty dark, but it's just not black dark. But it's so squishy, and it's just a dark purple tonal. It's really round. It's really, I've had other MCNs, and I like her MCN better. I made my sister some MCN socks with 2 different colors, striped, for Christmas, and again, one of them was from her and one of them was from somebody else, and I like her MCN better. I also like that for tag, super cute. Stop trying to focus on me. I also like that she sends 2 light bulb stitch markers with it. One is what hooks her tag to it, and then one is just stuck on the thing, which I think is super cool. So it's a typical MCN. It's an 80-10-10 superwash merino cashmere nylon. You got 380 yards. It's made in Minneapolis. You will always get a little handwritten note. I like it. I've bought from her a couple of times, and I will buy from her again. And of course, I will link all the yarns and where I buy them in the bottom, down in the show notes. I gotta find my shawl bag. Is there anything else I want to say about the socks? Oh, it's a free pattern too. And on those ones, I did, you know, I said earlier that I always use typically a 0 for my socks because I like a really tight fabric. I feel like it lasts longer and it holds up better. I'm a tight knitter to start with, and then I use a small needle. I went ahead and used a 1 on those. I thought about using a 2, but I went ahead and used a 1 because I've knit that pattern before and the fabric that it made was just really tight and not super stretchy. And because I was using the MCN from Dear Mina that is so fluffy, I thought it would fill in the spaces in between the lighter yarn well. And I want it to be a little bit more of a drapey fabric than a like sock. So I did go up a needle size on that. I did not enjoy it, I will admit, because I like my 0s. My 0s are chogos and my 1s are like my really ancient bamboo needles. So moving on to, you saw this last time, my Tarot Dago, and I said I hated the color work and that I was going to rip that shit out and that I was going to put in a gray block instead, and somebody talked some sense into me. It took me forever. I mean, forever. Hang on, I gotta get a drink here. This is my Dirty Bird coffee mug. It is covered in birds with bad names. Southern screamers, blue-footed boobies, dick kessels, tufted titmouse, woodcock, Andean cock of the rock, the bearded tit, the red-billed oxpecker, and the rough-faced shag. And inside on the bottom it has a tit. The bird kind. Not obscene, jeez. Sorry about that. My camera decided that it was done recording for the minute. I had to go turn it back on. So, yeah, a fandom friend talked me into keeping the flames because they were just so asshole. And it took me, I spaced it out over, I think, 3 days, and I just did like 3 rows a day because it was like 15 rows, I think, of color work that I did total, something in there. And I hated it. I will never, ever in my life do 3-stranded color work in the flat again, ever. So I actually did design the flames myself. I only have one regret, which will be immediately apparent, which is that I thought this was going to bend in more, and so I didn't put a flame here. I think I might go back and duplicate stitch that. So I have moved past the flames now. I know the shawl itself actually sits this way. I've moved past the flames now, so it should go pretty fast for the next, I don't know, foot or so, and then I'll be back into lace work, which will take a while. I do have on it a very nice, I'm sorry, Izzy, I'm gonna go up and show them. She's like, don't leave me, you're warm. I'm cold, remember? That, sorry, my hands are very shaky, is a Wolf Witcher Progress Keeper. And that is where you saw it last. So I did make some good progress. I got that from Adore Knits on Etsy, whom I will link. They have so much. Everything from Firefly. Now I have a dog behind me and I can't sit back. Everything from Firefly to Doctor Who to Star Trek. I don't know, maybe they got My Little Pony too. I mean, they seriously have like everything you could possibly imagine as far as geeky, nerdy fandom stitch markers and progress keepers go. The stitch markers are fairly plain because they are, I might have picked a needle, that's too bad. They're the hoops with the beads, but the progress keepers that come with them are amazing. I just don't have, just looking for a good needle to put this on from my needle, what I consider my needle case. There we go. Of course, the first thing that came out was the hat needle I was using yesterday, and that was too big. So they also sent, as a freebie, even though we only ordered one, they sent it's not gonna wanna focus well, which kind of sucks because it's super detailed. There you go. Geralt's sword as a extra, thank you. And it's got the runes on it and everything. I was like, that is so cool. So I definitely have some other ones from them that I'm like, woohoo, I'll be ordering from you again. And not just Witcher, like I'll be ordering some Firefly ones for sure. Because Firefly was a fandom for me long before Witcher was ever around. Because I'm old. Hi. She has decided to move up because she got cold. So, a little refresher on the colors. Uncle Fester. Haunted Gold. And I checked. So I actually asked Aiden. This is not Killer Tomatoes. The reason that I don't have a tag is because it is actually Escal Red. It is Killer Tomatoes that was extra double dyed red after that to get a deeper saturation. So it is a one-off for me. So it's not Killer Tomatoes. That's why I didn't have a tag. So other fun things that I have in my bag here. Focus. The Rabbit Tree soaps in Idaho have beeswax lanolin bars. Boy, it's really, there we go. It's really being difficult about focusing today. They come in a couple different scents, and they're just really good on my hands because the natural fibers tend to suck any moisture that Montana leaves in my hands out of it, and it's already dry and cold here, so we don't really need more. Sorry about that. We had to take some dog's potty, and then because it's cold, I had to get a shirt. The minute it stopped snowing, I felt that they needed to go out. So, all right, where were we? The show, we did the socks. I think that's it for works in progress. I do have plans to start the cardigan, the llama and mohair cardigan that I have planned. Yeah, the neighbors. But I don't have the needles for it yet. I need to get them. I am not one of those people who has like a set of interchangeable needles. It's a goal one of these days to get some interchangeable chagos. Probably the minis or the extra minis, the blue or the red case first, and then maybe a regular set. I don't use the bigger needles very often. The only thing that I use larger needles for really are hats or sometimes shawls with lace or something. I tend to do a lot of very small knits. So I have like a vast collection of various different fixed cable, there you go, fixed cable needle sizes, ranging from like really a 9 down to a 0. I think I have pretty much everything except for a 6, although I don't have every length. And some of them are bamboo and some of them are metal. I do prefer the metal, but I prefer the bamboo for certain types of yarn, depending on how slippery it is. Although my local knit shop, the yarn bar, turned me on to a brushed finish brass Addy lace needle for that shawl that is just as good as bamboo. Like nothing slips off that. That's pretty good. So from there, I think we're going to move into acquisitions and then fic and then questions and answers with Aiden from Undercover Otter. So if you don't want to see a small yarn horde of piggery go by, you can run away or fast forward. I know some people don't like that. I'm not rolling in money by any means. So, you know, some of my yarn is gifted to me by friends or gifted to me by family. Some of it is traded for, some of it is bought by me, but it's because I choose not to do a lot of hobbies outside of writing, photography, and knitting. I'm not buying a mountain bike. I'm not going on a Vegas vacation. So, you know, if I can purchase myself one $30 skein of yarn, I will. And I'm somebody who would really rather have one $30 skein of yarn than 3 $6 skeins of yarn. So, you know, to each their own. I know people have different opinions on the price of yarn and spending on it, but I feel like the people who are dyeing it should be getting paid what their time is worth. You know, when I used to do and sell photography, I wanted to get paid what I was worth, and I always felt that I could never ask. That was a big struggle for me, and I don't want them to have that same struggle. So, a tiny little soapbox there, I'll get off. So a couple of these things are still things that I ordered with Christmas money, but because USPS, and not just USPS, but even other mail agencies globally have struggled so hard with like the increase in package volume with all these people who are shopping online and getting their groceries online and getting their dry goods online and getting their kids' school supplies online and like not leaving to go to the store like they normally would. Plenty of it got crushed under tons and tons of mail and came to me all flat in a bag, but it's yarn, so it flips right back up. So, oh, the dog has a noisy toy. I apologize. So let's start with, so first thing, this was bought with some Christmas money. I have no idea what I'm going to do with it, but I love it. I had never bought from this shop before. It's an Etsy shop. It's called Dietastic Hand-Dyed Yarns. And it's a merino single fingering, and I have not ever done a project with singles before, because I like socks, and you can't make socks out of singles. And if you don't know that, now you know that. They just don't last. They're not made for it. It's not even though it says single socks, it's not for socks. So if I'm going to buy something and I don't know what I'm going to do with it, I'm not going to buy singles, because chances are down the road I'm going to decide that I want to make socks. So I'm going to buy something that I can make socks out of, whether it's like a 100% BFL, or if it's an MCN, or if it's something with nylon in it. I'm going to buy some kind of a sock base, or something bigger that's going to work in a hat or something. So the reason that I got a single is because I loved this color. It's got green and gray and white and black and brown, and I loved it so much. And it was all sold out except for one skein, which happened to be on singles. And I was like, well, I guess it's time to learn what to do with the singles then. So if you have any fun project ideas that you think will go good with this skein, hit me up in the comments down below. It is 400 yards even, and it's superwash. I'm interested. Part of the reason that I wanted this skein so bad is it was based off of an artwork that was just super cool. It was this girl sitting on this horse with this spool of yarn, and it just really spoke to me. It's very Slavic looking, and I liked it. So I actually went to do some research for the podcast and find out the artist. Like, I wanted to know what the name of the painting or drawing was, and the person who had dyed the yarn just had the person's name, which was Gata Rose, and then they just said, oh, it's A Dala Horse by Gata Rose. And I guess it wasn't clear to me. I did find later that that's all the artist called it, was a Dala horse. So Dala horse is a wooden, brightly painted horse in, I think, Sweden. And so I don't know that it has a real name, or if A Dala horse is the name. It's not capitalized like it's a title, but I will try to insert and throw up on the screen this lady's art. I am gonna link to her page down below. It looked to me like she posts on Tumblr all of her art. She does some tarot decks, she does some illustrations for all kinds of stuff, and she's got a prolific amount of art, and it's really interesting. It's watercolor, it's all watercolor. So that's Gata Rose, and I will link that down below. I'm like, I kind of want to go buy a piece of art from her now. Not that I have the money to be running around and doing that, but I want to. So that was the first one from Dietastic. That was, I bought with Christmas money. And then this one I bought with Christmas money as well. And Luke from Abe's Fiberwork emailed me right away and said, you know, we had let everybody on our website and on our mailing list know that we are going to be, you know, off work essentially through like the first week of January. So I just wanted to make sure with you that you weren't expecting this, because I had ordered it like 2 days before Christmas, like, you know, to go out in 2 days. And I sent an email back saying, no, absolutely not. It's a Christmas present from me to me with money that a relative gave me to spend on fun things. So I have no plans for it directly. It gets here when it gets here. So this came last week. This is, sorry, I can't talk and lean forward because I can't breathe. Keel Build Toucan. So they have a toucan colorway section. They have an owl colorway section. And then they also have colorways that are just named after common birds. So all of their colorways are bird inspired, and I thought that was really cool. I like colorways that have an inspiration, and I like colorways that have an inspiration that they can tell me. I mean, it's fine if you want to die and just be like, oh, I was just inspired by a sunset. But I also really like it if you could be like, I have a theme, and my theme is birds or art or slasher movies. And so I saw this, and I really like green. I really like turquoise and yellow. And I was like, this needs to be main, and it probably needs to be a pair of socks. So this is from Aves Fiberworks. I have no idea where they're located at. It does not say on their website. They are on Instagram. They are on Ravelry. They are on Etsy, and then they also have their own website. So this is it's called Tight Twisted or High Twist Sock. It's 85% superwash, 15% nylon. It is 105 grams instead of 100 grams, so you get 5 extra grams. But it's only 390 yards. It's really like squishy, and like it looks like a lot of yarn though. So I'm really excited to make this into socks. I mean, let's be honest, it's gonna be socks. And of course I went stash diving because I was like, I need some contrasting heels and toes for this, because y'all know I'm a hoe for contrasting heels and toes. And immediately found the perfect matching Undercover Otter mini strain sock from last year's Halloween advent. I was like, yes, I'll just do that right now. I need to see, this is why you have a stash, so that you don't have to buy yarn all the time. And then you buy yarn all the time. Okay, on to what I have on my notes as literally all of the Undercover Otter. Because, you know, I'm friends with Aiden, so I do buy a lot of yarn from them. If you haven't gathered by now that I like green, then you don't know what my favorite color is. I ordered these so long ago. The end of November, I think. And between PostNL, which is the Netherlands, and USPS, this came to me a week and a half ago. So a good 7 weeks-ish transit time, with an update on average maybe every 20 days. So these are the two that I ordered. Fava beans, because it's yellow and green, and I could not get this. I mean, I guess it's kind of, maybe it's bluish. It's turquoise-ish green. The overall theme is green. We'll put it that way. And this is, I've knit with this base before from them. It's called Treevenge, like Revenge of the Trees. It's 60% superwash merino and 40% tencel. It's kind of got a shine to it, not a whole lot. Like, it's nothing like a sparkly sock, but it's shiny like silk is shiny. And tencel is, it's tree based, but I can't remember which tree. Sorry, but it's a plant based thing. And it's really good. The tencel's really strong, so it's good for socks. Anyway, so it's grabby. I do like it. I have knit socks with it before. I've actually knit that Birkin seed pattern with it. So I wanted some more of it, and that was the color that I chose. And then they had rattlers up on their website, but they had it in singles, which you can't make into socks, as previously discussed. and I really liked it. Of all the colors, it was my favorite. So I was like, Aiden, would you do me a favor? Could you dye me some rattlers on a sock base? So I had my choice between True Venge or the regular Squirm. I went ahead with the regular Squirm because I do also like that. And I thought, I'm not 100% sure that this will be socks. It might go into one of my faded sweaters. We'll see. I haven't completely decided. It really depends. So this is like my crown and glory. It's gorgeous. It's gray and white, dark green, light green, moss green, almost black, some black, speckles. It's perfect. I don't think it was available on the Undercover Otter website on sock base, but it is on Stephen and Penelope, which is Stephen West's site. And then, because Aiden is a doll and knew that I wanted this and knows that I love Uncle Fester, they also gifted me Gnarly Marley DK, which is 100% Highland wool, which is 27 micron, and it's non-superwash, so it's shapy. It boss, but it's marled, and I love marled, and it's red, and my husband loves red, and it's black, and my husband loves black, and I wanted to make him a hat that was not yak. Llama? Alpaca. Llama. I made him a hat, and it's got just, I think it's just an acrylic brim because it was something left over in stash that he liked, and it's a Rafa's hat, and it has a red brim. And then it is all gray / black. It's charcoal, and it's really hot, which is great in the winter in Montana if you have a shaved head, and he loves it to death. But like, he comes in the house and in like 3 seconds his head is just too warm. And so like in the fall when it's cold, but it's not quite that cold yet, like not -10, he's like, I can't wear my hat because it's kind of not cold enough outside. I need another hat. So I wanted to make him a, quote, fall and spring hat that was just a normal heat hat, not make your head sweat hat. And so this was perfect. And it had said that I liked it. So this is going to become my other half's hat. Then we have some more Uncle Fester on Squirm sock because I love Uncle Fester gray, and I love it in my socks, and I can use it for my husband's socks with some red toes, and I can use it for gray for my toes, so it will be well loved and well used. I think that and my little not stitch markers, my little progress keepers are all that I've bought, and most of it was bought before Christmas. It's just really slow getting here. So I'm not really that big of a yarn pig, even though I am a little bit of a yarn pig sometimes. So the other thing that came in my box from Aiden at Undercover Otter was peppernoten. And I had never had peppernoten before. They are a very tiny cookie from the Netherlands. There's also kruidenoten, and they're little like hard ginger spice cookies covered in chocolate or flavored chocolate, and they're so good. Oh my god. So I now have a new addiction, so I got some kind of like salt licorice flavored ones of those, because if you've never had licorice in Amsterdam, it is apparently typically the salt licorice kind. So if you don't like your licorice salty, that's not for you. And some stroopwafel kind, because stroopwafels are amazing. And no, I probably don't say any of that with the proper Dutch accent. I'm sorry, I'm not from Amsterdam. But they were amazing. So thank you to Aiden for the amazing extra yarn and the really, really tasty candies. Moving on, we'll try and insert Aiden's stuff here. Hello, Lux. Apparently she wants to say hello. Okay, sit down. So I have one thing that I've promised for this episode, which was an interview with Aiden from Undercover Otter. I have tried a couple of times to make this work between Amsterdam and Montana, my internet and their internet, and it's been a struggle. So you're not gonna get us both at the same time because our internets just will not cooperate at the same times. So what we're gonna do instead is I wrote up the questions that I had for them and sent it to them. They're gonna record it separately, and then I'm gonna edit that in.
Hi, I'm Aiden. I run Undercover Otter here in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. And Bean has asked me to introduce you to some of my yarn. One of the first questions that she asked is, do you have some colorways you really love, and what did you name them after and why? Which movies, which, you know, all of that. I've got a few. I've got all of these. But I've picked 3 that I really love that have, I think they have an interesting story behind them. One of them is this one. It's a really dark purple, and it's called There's Only Zool. Back in the year of our Lord, no, back in, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, we had a collaboration with Dana, who designed amazing socks with this colorway and a neonish green yellow, and both were themed around the Ghostbusters movies. And as you know, there is no Dana, there is only Zool. So I basically named the yarn after the designer of the socks. The socks are called Don't Cross the Streams, of course. Yeah, I really love this deep purple. It's a very dark purple, but it still has some color to it. This one is on our Nevermore yarn base, which is a sock yarn that contains Exmoor Blueface, Corriedale, Zwart Bles, and nylon. It's pretty sturdy. It's the same as the Exmoor sock yarn from John Arbon. So it's pretty sturdy and it works great in socks. It also really works very well in colorwork for like sweaters, like colored yokes and stuff. Another one I really like is Lipdon. You can see them. You can see the babies here. Lipdon is a bright emerald green. And Lipdon is the name of the leprechaun in the Leprechaun movies. His actual name is Lipdon. Because I thought going for, you know, an Irish leprechaun-y name would be a bit... Oh, with this hair, it looks good, though. Anyway, I thought it'd be funny. So I designed a green, named it after a leprechaun. And then we have one of my favorite colorways. This one is a bit skewed because it's dyed on our Gnarly Marley yarn base, which is it's a pretty fun base. Hang on, I've prepared one earlier. It's this. If it's undyed, it looks like this. It has one... Oh God, I'm trying to find the butt end. Don't you hate that? Here you go. It's basically... Most of it is white, and then every now and then they spun in some black yarn, and both of them take the dye pretty well. And what happens when you dye this up is that you get this. So you'll have a marled effect without it being baker's twine, which is the thing I'm not a great fan of baker's twine yarns. So this is way better. Nina was one of our clan of Igor's colorways that we made in 2019. People loved it. So it's now a regular colorway. It has greens, teals, pinks, purples, blues, and it's splattered in this dark, almost blue, violet. I think it's called ultraviolet. I love it a lot. It's named after the first female Igor on screen. As you might know, when I say the name Igor, most people, you think of a lab assistant or whatever, because that's what Igor's are to us. The name Igor didn't become a synonymous thing for a lab assistant until the end of the 1800s, beginning of the 1900s. We mostly know it because of, I'm just going to put it here because it's so beautiful. You mostly know it because of the Frankenstein story from Mary Shelley. And actually, no, that's not what you know it from. You might think that's what you know it from, but there is no assistant in Mary Shelley's official or original Frankenstein book in her novel. Igor was invented by the people that wrote the stage play based on the book, because they needed someone for the main actor who was playing Victor von Frankenstein to, play off of. Otherwise, you just have a dude standing on a stage monologuing until he actually wakes up the monster, which is boring as hell. So they made up a character, called him Igor, bumbling lab assistant. This is now what we pretty much call all people that are like, a bit bumbly. If you read Terry Pratchett, you'll know the clan of Igors. If you don't read Terry Pratchett, why not? Get on that. Get on that. Do it. I'd say start with Monsters Regiment. I love that one. But the first female character that fulfilled the Igor role was an assistant called Nina. So this is one of my favorite colors because it was the first female Igor. I think Bean has more questions for me. Another question is what it's like to be a queer yarny. Because there's sort of like, there's multiple groups. We can't plunk everyone in together. But I think society mostly sees knitting and fiber crafts like, crochet, needle pointing, weaving, spinning. People tend to see it as like old women's hobbies, which I think in the past 10 years we've pretty much proven is not a thing. It's not an old ladies thing. It's something someone of any age, gender, or orientation can or will do. That being said, what I notice as a queer yarny is that a lot of the people that will go to festivals and things will still present as cis, hetero, straight women, which is also a thing that's changing. There's a lot more openly gay people in general in the world, which is a good thing. Don't put me in that closet. Don't do that. I don't like it there. Also, I'm not going to do your laundry while I'm in there. I'm just going to sit there. I think that's the thing I mostly noticed, is that most people in the yarn community don't really give a shit about your gender or your orientation. The people I encounter, let's put it at that, I'm blessed with having a really good craft group here in Amsterdam. I'm missing them fiercely. Even
pandemic.
So we're not meeting up. We do some digital craft events, on Zoom together. And now that I think of it, most of them are either queer or ally, so it's not something I encounter a whole lot. Luckily. What I find funny about it though is that people do assume pretty quickly that if you're male and you're in this category of crafts, they'll start going like, so do you have a girlfriend or and they'll get really confused. How I know this, my partner is a male and he identifies as a man, and and when we go to festivals, we'll man the booth together. Sometimes we get someone else in, but usually it's just him and I. And it happens a lot of times where people will, ask him, first of all, do you knit? He does. He enjoys it. He's not an avid as an avid a knitter as I am, but he spins, he knits, he does things with fiber. He knows how it works. He dyes yarn. So he can answer most of the questions that people will have about hand-dyed yarn. And they'll carefully be like, so do you have a boyfriend? And he'll be like, well, I've got a partner and this is them. And I think those are some of the funnier interactions with people. Most of us who have knitted or crocheted or whatever in public, you will have gotten the questions of, what are you doing? Are you making a shawl? Are those socks? Aren't you too young for this? Aren't you too male for this? Etc. And I think most people, after getting that question once or twice, I just either answer them politely and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Or I don't ignore people, but it's more, I explain that there's a lot of fun in doing something with crafts, and especially with soft shit that you can hold in your hand. I mean, and I can take it with me on the bus or on the train. And if I have like a long commute somewhere, I will definitely be taking knitting and a book, because that's just, what else am I going to do? So I think being queer and being in the knitting community, I think I'm lucky. I really think I'm lucky because I don't encounter that much negativity on that account. Yeah. So it's not that bad here. Your mileage may vary. I don't know, if you're based in bumblefuck nowhere, where there's only one knitting group and they're all homophobic. Yeah, I feel for you, and that is shit, and that needs to change. But thank God I have not had that experience at all in the people I've met. The next question is kind of hard. It's true. The question is that writing fan fiction or reading it is similar to fiber crafts and the fiber crafty world, to call it that, in the sense that there's a lot of collaborations going around. You'll have a lot of designers that will, need yarn to make a shawl, for instance. And what ends up happening is that they'll either contact a yarn dyer or me. I contact people too, and I'm like, hey, I like what you do. Is there any way for me to support you with yarn, and that way, get some of your patterns made easier, because hand-dyed yarn ain't cheap. And I'm gonna press pause, and I'm gonna grab one of my favorite collaborations I've done in the past. Oh, since we started in 2014. So I'll be right back. I'm back. I lied. I got 2 collaborations that I really love doing. I'll readjust the camera. The first, they're both from the same designer. The designer is Jane Murison. You can find her on Ravelry, Instagram. Your mom's wire attached to a can, I don't know, as Yarnison. She's from Manchester, the UK. She's actually from Edinburgh, but I've met her in Manchester, and she is amazing, an amazing designer. She makes great shawls. She has an obsession with mini skeins. And this is one of the collaborations we've done. I'm gonna show you it from the beginning to the end. I love this so much. It's gorgeous. It's designed to use one main skein of a main colorway, and then you can use however much you want. This is why I love this pattern. Minis or leftovers that you have, and you make these gorgeous waves. Look at this. This is our Screaming Satsuma colorway. And then here we have Nilbog, which is a neon yellow. And you keep going, and there's Your Mother Darn Socks in Hell, another one of ours. Toxie, named after the Toxic Avenger. Citadel, really good movie from Kieran Foy. And we go into Leviathan, horrible movie, but still great. And this is the fingering weight version. She's got two versions. There is also a DK weight version, which she and I came up with together because I thought you should be able to do this with a DK weight yarn, right? She does all the math for you in advance. And the biggest plus of that is that I don't have to do any math. I'm gay. I can't do that. I can't do math. That ain't happening. But this is the one that we made in a DK weight yarn. And again, Screaming Satsuma, because always. Sam, one in orange. This is Necromantic, a bright pink. Slumber Party, which is named after the Slumber Party Massacre. Another horrible movie. A feminist movie, though. Check it out. It's pretty good. It was written, directed, and mostly done by females, but a lot of people didn't really understand what they were going for, so it got labeled as just being, you know, sexy girls having pillow fights. Not what it is. But this is the DK weight of the Rainbow Relay. That's what this one is called. It's amazing. I'm going to show you another design of hers that I really love. This is the Armchair Athlete, which is based on Canadian brands. You know those Kappa tracksuits? I don't know if they were popular in the US, but they were hot as hell in the early 90s in Europe, especially in the Netherlands. And if you didn't have, you know, with the stupid buttons on the side, and you could, basically, I think they looked like stripper pants. You could just pull them off, and then that's what Jane Yarnison based this design on, and I love it. These more stripes, more Adidas. I love these little, they're bumpy stripes. Look. And then you get to a sort of tire track motif here. And you use yarn overs and you carry the yarn, and then you get to the next. She did this one in Squirm. In the blue is called Space Chicken. Wow. I was like, it's something with a bird. I just don't remember what. And this is our Caligari colorway, which is a bare white yarn with dark speckles. And after she showed me the design, I came up with my own version with Society, which is a dark blue, dark denim blue, and Sam, which is an orange. And I think I altered this design a little bit so that I would use as much of the, there we go, this is better. So I could use as much of the yarn as I had. So I added some extra stripes, and I love this. It's gorgeous. It does nothing for my current complexion or anything. So I'll do this right now. Here we go. So that's not necessary, bitch. That's one of my favorite collaborations, and dream collaborations. You know, I'm very lucky in that I have collaborated with some great designers already. Including Jane. I make a lot of kits for Stephen West for his designs. Like about a month or 6 ago, we only started out dyeing on a larger scale here in this dye studio. which also means that this has only been half a year in which we've been able to dye as much as we are now dyeing. So like doing a collaboration and kits and stuff like that, I think it's super interesting. And I would like to see more cross. I'm trying to think of the English word. Because English is not my native mother tongue. That's Dutch. Nederlands. Um, Interdisciplinary. I think that might be the word. That also might not be the word. Let's just take it. I would like to see more things happen with yarn and knitting and crochet and fiber crafts that have nothing to do with just making patterns and knitting, from a pattern, but are more geared towards things in which you do other things with yarn. A friend of mine, Darren Smith, he's a great photographer, and he uses fiber in some of his photography. I will send Beam some pictures so you can see what I mean. Every now and then he'll call me and he'll be like, I need like fluorescent glow in the dark yarn to pop on camera. Could you dye me some that is UV reactive so I can use it in photo shoots? Or I'm looking for a specific kind of blue. Can I describe it to you? Can I send you paint chips? Can you make it for me in fiber? Because I want someone to use it in a photo shoot. And those are the collaborations I really love. That's not even geared towards, selling merchandise or getting kits to people, but it's more making sure that people realize that it's not just tossing some paint onto or dye onto yarn and calling it a day. There's more to this. Side note, career advice, don't go into yarn dyeing. Not unless you're willing to not have a high income. And it's physical work. You do a lot of lifting. It's a lot of thinking. Only 20% of my time is spent actually dyeing yarn. The rest is admin and all the other bullshittery around it. This is not a moneymaker. Anyone who thinks that people who dye yarn are in it for the money, get your head checked, because that ain't true. I love my job, and I would not trade it for anything, to be honest. It's one of those things where I'm like, I love it. I love it so much that I'm willing to take a step back and to, I do provide for our entire family of 2 humans and a cat. And that way it works. It works. And it's fine. It's good. But you will not be making millions. And you will be getting dirty fingers. It's not as bad right now. Oh, look, pink. I probably have some green here. You're sweaty. You're working in a warm, humid environment. But it's great. And I wouldn't have it any other way, to be honest. So, collaborations, that's it. I love how Bean only asks simple questions like, how does the fiber world, how can the fiber world work towards inclusion? That's such an easy egg to crack. It's not. I think the most important thing is that we all need to aware of the privileges we hold. We need to listen to each other. We need to talk to each other. And as a semi-female presenting white person, I know which privileges I have. I know that some things have been way easier for me because I'm white or because I present as a woman. Though looking at my own face right now, I'm like, I don't present that feminine, which is good. I like it. I don't like being called a lady. Anyway, I think the biggest thing is talk, listen, especially listen to the things people have to say that have nothing to do with you. Like if, for instance, I would start talking about the experiences of a black woman from Alabama, that would be bullshit, because neither am I from Alabama, nor am I black, or a woman, for that matter. Same like the woman in Alabama cannot talk about me. I I don't know what it's like to walk a mile in their shoes. They don't know what it's like to walk a mile in mine, except for fucking glorious, because they're really nice shoes. I've got shoes with a fake crocodile print. And my inner Tiger King is very happy with this. Anyway, I think that's the thing. Be aware of who you are, what you do, and that not everyone has the same experience. And other than that, I don't believe in cancel culture or calling people out in a malevolent way. Yes, I do believe in keeping people accountable or holding them accountable. But anyone who's been in the fiber world knows that there's been a big stank in the past 2 years for a lot of the shit that's been going down that is not okay. And I think that most of that is terecht. That's a Dutch word. You can work with that. What I'm trying to say is that I get it, and we need to, just adjust each other's way of communication and listen to each other. And I think that's one of the ways we can work towards inclusion of everything and everyone. Another thing is that as an indie dyer, I know very well that, an average mom of 6 with one job might not be able to afford a skein of hand-dyed yarn. I know this. I can't ask less money for it. If I could, I would. But there's costs that, the rent here needs to be paid, and the base yarn costs money. The band costs money. I cost money. Yeah, I cost money. One of my coworkers also costs money. It's a shit thing that this is not accessible to anyone or everyone. What I do think, though, is that one of the things how we can break that is stop stigmatizing cheaper yarns. Like, when people come into a knit night or craft night and they have their red heart with them, or here in the Netherlands, scheepjes, don't make fun of them. It's not cool. First of all, both red heart and scheepjes have a few yarns in their assortment that are pretty fucking good, especially for the quality that you get and the price point at which it sells. Next to that, you can see in someone's life. I mean, maybe they have an allergy to sheep's wool or whatever. Then it gets really hard to get hand-dyed yarns, because you'll have to go towards like alpaca or yak or anything else, which is considered exotic, thus more expensive. So stop making fun of the things you don't understand or that aren't in your wheelhouse. And this really relates to fan fiction, in my opinion, too. I'm not a big fan of the Omegaverse stuff. I don't believe in dividing people in you're born as A, B, or C. Hence being non-binary and being like, fuck all y'all. But what I do then is that I just choose not to read it. But I do understand that there are people who do enjoy it. And, I will not make fun of them for liking that specific genre. Just like I won't make fun of people because they just enjoy using... To be fair, if I need to knit something for like nieces, nephews, children, berbers, I use acrylic yarn. Why? Washing machine. I mean, kids are going to grow out of it. They're going to play. They're going to tear things. And in that case, I want to be able to fix it with a, equivalent or exactly the same skein that I know will be the same color after a year when I purchase it. And I also want to be able to wash it and put it in a dryer. I don't want to give my newly parented friends like, oh, here's a blanket made of this, and then pretty much have their kid only allowed to sit on it and that's it. Doesn't work. So everything has a time and a place, and that also goes for yarn. So the last question is, what am I knitting or crocheting right now? I've actually been knitting something for myself again. I had lost my knitting mojo 2 years ago when our studio moved, and I was done. I was like, I'll just dye yarn and do something else in the meantime. I was just tired, basically. What I'm making right now, though, is, I love it already, is work in progress. It is. Oh, look, it's a little Shelly can stitch marker. Anyway, this is the, I want to say, Lightweight Hipster by Hoey Locatelli. And it's a shawl. It's a one skein project, which I like because that's about as much as my attention span is. And after like just going garter stitch, you have these, I don't know if you can see it very well. It's like elongated stitches that you get by doing yarn overs, multiple yarn overs, and then passing 3 stitches over the 3 other ones so that they sort of make like an hourglass type shape. I like it. I'm gonna have to see how it blocks. The colorway is Gorgon. It is one of our newer colorways, and it's dyed on this delicious yarn base that we call Revenge, and I'm hoping that it will focus properly. You can see a bit of a shimmer in it. It's 60% merino, 40% tencel, and the tencel makes it shine. It's more shiny than silk. It's also slightly more, it's stronger. Tencel is tree pulp, and this base can be used for socks, but also for shawls because it's really freaking soft. It is hard enough that I cannot, like, sometimes when I'm at the end of, I'll just pull it and break off the yarn. I can't because the tencel is too strong. So, and the other question is, what am I indulging in the media department right now? And this might divide your audience. I'm sorry. I'm indulging in Cyberpunk 2077 because I can play a dude with a vagina. This is something that I have been missing in my life. Playing a dude with a... Well, actually, that's not completely true. This is something that I've been doing my whole life. Playing a dude with a vagina. Anyway, so I'm playing Cyberpunk a lot. I've not even been reading that much. Mostly gaming. Some spinning. I enjoy Cyberpunk. Do I think they released it too early? Yes. Do I think it's a buggy mess? Oh, yes. Do I love the characters and the story so far? Yes. And looking at it, I think that the biggest mistake they made is, releasing it before it was ready. They needed 6 more months. And I understand that they wanted to release it when they did, because they were already behind. You want to get it out before the end of the fiscal year. Let's put it at this. All the choices that were made for corporate reasons. And I find it hilarious that an anti-corporate message-bearing game got released too early because of corporations. It's, like my good friend Alanis Morissette once upon a time said, it's a bit ironic. Yeah. But I love it. I was a huge fan of the 2020 tabletop role-playing game. I played it with my teens, which is 5 years ago. We all know this. And I think they're doing a pretty good job with it. And I think... See, this is the thing. Bean and I know each other through the Witcher fandom. And I remember the first week of Witcher 3. That was ugly. I've seen some shit. And as we speak, Geralt got stuck on a frickin' rooftop the other day again in my playthrough, so it's never gonna be perfect. Yeah, it crashes. It ain't good. It ain't great. But I do really love it. Game-wise, that's what I'm playing right now, Cyberpunk. And I will always go back to The Witcher to just fuck around in whatever area and just, do my things. And watching wise, my coworker, Jack of all plagues, has finally gotten me into Hannibal. I don't know why I didn't want to get into Hannibal. I think because of fandom, actually, to be honest. Because people were like, "Oh, we ship them," mwah! And I was like, "I don't know if I want to see this." And Mats Mikkelsen's face freaks me out. When I look at him, I'm like, something is wrong. I just can't tell you what. Spoiler, it's the eyebrows. I figured out that the eyebrows creep me out. But I'm really enjoying it. We're at the last season, and I'm not going to spoil anything for you. But if you haven't watched it, it's worth it with some knitting and just watch it. And especially the third season, apparently that's when they knew they were going to get canceled. So they were like, fuck it, we're just going to do all the things. So that makes it kind of hilarious.
Okay, moving on, I wanted to talk about some fanfic recommendations that I have. Well, only one. It's old, it's not new. It's something that was recommended to me by my writing partner. It's in a fandom that I'm not in, I don't write in, I don't typically even read in. And it's content that I really would not normally read. And it kind of just goes to show that, like, sometimes it's okay to go outside of your box. So I typically don't like to read het fanfic, because even as a bi woman who's married to a man, it is not the kind of thing that I want to read. And I think it's interesting that, like, with male fan fiction, even if you're not thinking of them as particularly as male characters or as homosexual sex, people tend to explore the emotions in it a lot more. So, like I said, het's not really my thing. So, and the same thing with, like, femslash. Again, they're put on an even level because there is no sexual dimorphism, as far as the power dynamic is concerned. With het, there's this power dynamic, and according to society, the male's power dynamic is so much bigger than the female's, and therefore there's this dimorphism, and that's what I don't like. Anyway, so going back to this. So I don't usually read het, so when somebody recommends me het, I'll give it a try, but I always go into it with a grain of salt. Again, fandom that I don't read, characters that I know of because they're all over media, but I don't know because I admittedly didn't watch the movie. And tropes that I wouldn't normally read because I'm not Jewish, and it's an entirely fic, or it's a fic entirely about somebody who is essentially falling in love with her rabbi. It's a one-shot, and it's great because it is nothing like all the tropes and things that we've heard since we were 3 years old about how women are supposed to behave, about how men are supposed to behave. And the writing is really good, and it's short, and it's sweet, and it's wholesome het, and there's nothing offensive in it. So it's called Shalom Rav, and it's a het Kylo Ren Rey from the Star Wars fandom. It's by Crossing Winter on AO3, and I'll drop the link below. And like I said, it's a one-shot. It doesn't take long to read. It's good. It's vanilla. It's, again, nothing I would normally read, but I really like it. And I read it well over 6 months, maybe even a year ago. And I still once in a while think about it and how good that actually was for just heteronormative sex that was not boring, not tropey. And also because it made me think, I am not Jewish, and it was interesting to me from a non-religious perspective to see a little bit inside of those other religions, and how for some religions, their priest or their pastor is supposed to be celibate, and so you come up with all these, fics that are based on the taboo of that and breaking that taboo. And then if you go and you search in the tags on AO3, this is the only one for Judaism that is tagged with breaking this taboo, because there is no taboo, because rabbis are expected to get married and have babies. And so it was interesting from that perspective. It's just a totally different perspective. Sometimes it's fun to get out of your box, to get out of your fandom and out of what you write, what you read, what you normally think of as, oh, this is a thing I'll enjoy, especially if you're really tired of the things that you enjoy. So I would recommend that. I don't really think I have anything else. I've been watching a ton of Netflix, but nothing on it has really been like, oh. I have been listening to like my two favorite podcasts, which are Ologies, which is a science-based podcast that takes the science, the ology, and explores it with a professional for about an hour. And then You're Wrong About, which is Michael and Sarah, and they sit and chat, and I love it because, for one, Sarah clearly writes fanfic. For two, she grew up in the same part of the US as I did, so I can really relate to her way of talking and her way of thinking. And for three, they are around about the same age as me, a little bit younger. So they are exploring topics that I remember. And You're Wrong About basically takes a point in history, usually from the 90s or the 80s, and looks at how do we remember that topic, whether you're talking about like the O.J. Simpson Bronco chase or Tanya Harding or Acid Rain. And they talk about like the perception that they have of it, and then one of them researches it in depth and debunks all the things that you thought about it based on what you heard from the media versus the real story and what actually happened, and so how you are wrong about history. And it's super good, and I love it. So I would highly recommend those two podcasts on whatever platform you enjoy listening. That's what I do when I'm knitting something that I have to look at, like color work, which I hope to not do for a really long time, although I spotted somebody's hat. Actually, I spotted somebody's hats. I spotted one on Needles at the Ready. Ray did an Alaska hat, and I was like, oh, I really want to make one now. And then somebody else did a hat with birds that I asked them the name of, and I was like, I really want to make that one too. But I don't know. So now that both of my dogs are dead asleep, and you're probably tired of hearing me talk, I am going to let you go. I will see you again in 2 weeks. And hopefully by then, I have some finished socks for my feet. And we'll see what else I have by then. Probably another pair of socks, because my sock club's supposed to be coming. Have a good night, or day, or afternoon, depending on wherever you are.